Hello, welcome to my studio. My name is Elysia, and today I am going to talk about and break down the All-State Etude Series C for high schoolers in Alabama for this year. This is for All-State Band auditions. So this is the technical exercise, the Allegretto Giusto Leggero. So the kind of fast, light, fun etude. It's marked at quarter note equals 96, which actually isn't too bad, but some of the rhythms are a little tricky. There's a lot of accidentals, modulation through keys, and there's meter change. So yay! So what I would do first, and I'm not going to do, but you should, is just play through it. Just sight read it. Just to see what happens so you know it all is in there. Once you have done that, I would go and work on the grace notes that are in the second half of the, well, actually not even the second half, it's the last third to last and second to last line. So measures 35 and 36, 37, 38. That's where your grace notes are. It's 4 measures. And first, recognize that you've played this before. The first 2 measures here are the first 2 measures of the piece, and they've added in a grace note. The next 2 measures are little da-da-das, so that shouldn't be too bad either. But look at them, and if they're causing you problems, which they may be, break it down a little bit more. So I'm looking at measure 35, and I am going to break it down as much as I possibly can. And this may seem a little silly to you, but for some people it will be very helpful. And even if you don't think it'll help, you should do it this way just to solidify your fingers so that they have muscle memory for this. And it's not a panic guessing game. So in measure 35, if I take out the grace note, is the same as the first measure. But now I want to add in that grace note. And if I'm not able to do that right away from the get-go, I would break it down and literally play the grace note to the first beat. Then add the very next note, and no more, 1 note at a time. And then go back and try and play the whole measure. But then you also have to worry about the beginning half, right? Getting into it. So play the measure before it, or the 2 measures before it, whatever is more comfortable for you getting into it, so that you can play the grace note. And that's how I'd work on the next measure too, which again seems silly. That rhythm. So break it down so that you can handle it and your mind can process what's going on. After you've figured out the grace notes, go back, look at all the accidentals, because it's a little crazy. Starting in measure 9, where does it stop really? It stops in 17. There's a lot of key changes you're going through, which I hope you realize. But you're going through a bunch of different keys. You're playing the same rhythmic idea, the rhythmic theme of this etude, which is syncopation. Bum 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 in different keys. So I would go through and mark in whatever you need. Like in mine, in measure 10, I marked the B flat. I gave myself a courtesy B flat because honestly I feel like I'm in D major, but I'm not. I see C sharp and I'm like D major. And then for the record, I don't even have enough sharp. So just mark anything that would help you is what I'm saying. I marked my B flat, and I have a couple other markings in here too. Measure 15, I gave myself a courtesy natural over my D. So don't think that writing things in makes you less of a musician. That's just simply not true. Professionals mark their music all the time. It's not like they're playing perfectly clean sheets of music. So mark in your accidentals. Now the biggest challenge for this probably is the meter change. You have to keep your 16th notes consistent. That's I mean, how I usually think about it at first, just to get through it when I'm sight reading. I'm like, just keep my 16th notes the same and you'll survive, which is true. That's true. But you want to play this musically too, so that it feels as much as possible like the melodic line is not being interrupted by this extra 8th note. Okay? So think about keeping the 16th notes the same, and what you may want to do is in measure 31, start on the 2nd beat. So leave out that 1st beat for a second and just play through the 16th. So the 2nd half of 31, all of 32, and all of 33. And you may hear I'm putting an accent on those slurred groups. It grounds me. I don't want to accent it too much because it's not written, but that helps me feel grounded when I'm playing. And as I get more comfortable, I'm going to take it out of my playing. Now go back, and if that feels comfortable, go ahead and add in the syncopated rhythm. And if it's too weird for you to start at 31, start even a measure or two before that. And then once you've got that, you might want to turn on your metronome. I have mine set to 96 as the quarter note, and again I have a doctor beat, so my 8th notes are on now. And now just try and keep your 8th note consistent. And here's the thing, if I play this with the metronome, which I can, and you should, if you feel up to the challenge, if you put it at 96 and play with it, you can do it, but you'll, after your first 5/8 measure, you will be an 8th note off. So what you'll hear is your and beats instead of the down beats. So what you heard there is after my first 5/8 measure in 32, the metronome was not on my downbeats, and it wasn't until the end of the second 5/8 measure in 41 that I was back on with the metronome. So it is possible to play this with the metronome, just on quarter notes, but just be aware that it's going to be for a few measures playing off beats or giving you off beats instead of downbeats. And then the last thing I want to say on this as you think about this is the dynamics are a little difficult in some cases, because if you look at measure 21, it says mezzo forte. And you might not think this is a big deal, but it's very easy to overplay your mezzo forte here. And then when you get to your fortissimo 16ths in the following measure, they don't sound quite as strong. So all I'm gonna say in this little passage where you have the mezzo forte, ba, ya, da, da, dum, into your 16th, hold back on your dotted quarter note and 8th notes in terms of dynamics. Just make them very sweet with your vibrato, a healthy mezzo forte, but remember that then your 16ths need to come out substantially more, and part of that will happen just from the staccatos and them being 16ths. But that is a somewhat tricky dynamic change, so just keep that in mind. Other than that, happy practicing, good luck, and thank you for visiting my studio.